Kirby Smart's talked about it, and it's pretty evident if you watch him play. Graham Mertz has been really hot lately. Dean Legge, Matt DeBerry, another edition of Riding Home. Is the Florida quarterback? Do the Gators have a quarterback that is good enough to beat these Dogs, Matt? That's the question. Graham Mertz, one of the top percentage completion guys in the country, and Kirby Smart has been talking about how good he's been lately. Well, I mean, what do you think? You tell me.
I think he's come a long way from that Utah game, and he has progressed more and more as the season has come along. Now, South Carolina's defense is just utter garbage. I've heard from many South Carolina folks that told me, hey, Graham Mertz did look good and Florida's offense did look good, but a lot of that don't look too much into it. But like you said, the numbers speak for themselves. He's completing a lot of passes. He's accurate, and he does, check down or go to the best option, around the line of scrimmage, but he still wants to throw the ball deep, and he did that successfully against South Carolina and made some nice plays against the Vols too. And he's got some weapons, more than I thought at the beginning of the season. And they seem to be rolling right now. They're out of the pistol. They've got backs. The offensive line, I think, is playing better and better. But at the end of the day, if you want to beat Georgia, you have to have an elite quarterback. I would not put him in that elite category with Joe Burrow, Bryce Young, and Kyle Trask. I guess those are the last three to beat the Dogs. Kyle Trask wasn't elite, but he had a very, very good 2020 season. It was quietly one of the best quarterback seasons anyone's had in the SEC, if I remember correctly. He was very good. I don't think Graham Mertz has faced a defense like this. I think he's going to have a lot of trouble, and I don't think he's going to complete 75% of his passes in this one, Dean.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. Will he get that done? Will he be the guy that really has a big day against Georgia? He had his really best and most consequential day came against South Carolina. 30 of 48, 63%, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was an abnormal day, not just because of the 400 yards. He's only had one other game where he was over 300, which was the Utah game when they were trying to come back in that game. No, he's not like Joe Burrow. Is he as good as Jarrett Stidham?
I'd put him in. He's playing like it right now. The last several weeks, I think he could. Now, probably not, but I think his ceiling and Stidham's ceiling might be the same. But he is playing better. I feel like we have to give him some credit for that.
Yeah, so that's the question. I'm putting this list together right now because it's not a very long one. From 2017 on, what happened? The amazing thing about beating Georgia at quarterback. I don't know who you give credit to with beating them for Alabama in 17 and 18, because in both those games, the anomaly here is the South Carolina game in 19. But in both those games with Tua and Hurts, if they don't make substitutions, they lose those games.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's so crazy is both times that was a real issue for them. Georgia.
Yeah.
Or Alabama, I should say. I mean, does Alabama win the national championship if Jalen Hurts is their quarterback for that whole game?
Georgia wins both those games if Nick Saban doesn't make those changes.
Well, Nick made the change at halftime, but I don't know, after that.
But the year later, he pulled Tua for Jalen.
He got hurt. Tua was hurt, man.
Okay. Yeah.
Tua could not function. That's what's so wild about this is that Tua was hurt, man. He was really banged up. You could see it on the sideline, actually. That he just couldn't. He couldn't. They were going to move. Frankly, here's the list of guys that you're talking about. So 9 players have beaten Georgia since 2017. There have been 9 losses for Georgia. Kirby is that number. I think that's correct. In 2017, they lost to Auburn and Jarrett Stidham on the road. They beat them after that by 3 touchdowns, but they lost them. A little bit later in the year for the national championship, they lost. Who am I giving this credit to Tua or to Jalen?
The national championship win?
Yes.
I'd have to go to Tua.
Okay. So, I missed a Joe Burrow. That's what it is. So then you had Tua and then Hurts, and then you have Joe Burrow. And
Twice.
what's that?
Twice, right?
Twice. Yes, I'm trying to go in order here. I'm not doing a very good job.
Okay.
But you have Joe. So let me start over. Jarrett Stidham at Auburn, number 1. That was the first loss in 17. Now I'm talking about post 7. I'm not even talking about 16. 16 right. Wasn't bad either, though, if you think about it, because they had Crazy Town, who was the quarterback at Ole Miss. Remember his name?
Kelly, Chad
Kelly. Josh Dobbs at Tennessee.
Yeah.
Whoever the quarterback was at what now?
At Vanderbilt. I don't know.
Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
So that's an option quarterback. So those are the 4. But when I'm talking about sort of modern Georgia, you had Jarrett Stidham. You had, I'm going to say Tua, Joe Burrow, whoever the quarterback was at USC, because Tyler Heineke got hurt.
Yeah.
Then Joe Burrow again. So we're still at 4. And then, so that was the SEC championship game. Then Mac Jones. This was in 20. Kyle Trask, and then in 21, Bryce Young.
Was Jalen? Did you say Jalen Hurts in that 18 title game?
I don't think I said it, but I've got it on my list here. The global point here is we're talking about Jarrett Stidham, NFL quarterback, or was. Tua and Jalen, both NFL starters. Joe Burrow, NFL starter / could be an MVP. The guy who was taking snaps for USC and handing it off. Mac Jones, who's a starter for the Patriots still. Kyle Trask, who does not look like he's going to be an NFL starter at this point. So,
right.
Second round draft pick. Very good that day and very good that season in 2020. And then Bryce Young. Now, is this Young? Go ahead.
Heisman Trophy winner.
Heisman Trophy winner. And the other guy that gave him very serious trouble was, C.J. Stroud for sure. And then the quarterback in Missouri who had an okay day, but they didn't win. So Graham Mertz, is he in that universe of guys? For me, obviously he's not Joe Burrow or a Heisman Trophy candidate or anything like that. When you watch him play, though, man, like against Tennessee, he really moved well in the pocket. He played well. He did not play well, globally speaking, against Kentucky. He did not play really great against Utah, although he hit 71%. Here's what concerns me about Florida, okay, as it relates to Graham Mertz and just functioning as an offense, Matt. Here are the numbers that concern me. Against Utah, 5. Against Kentucky, 3. Against Vanderbilt, 3. Against South Carolina, 4. You have any idea what I'm talking about?
No.
That's how many times he was sacked in each of those games.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, I think Georgia's going to turn up the heat. We saw last year they didn't have a ton of sacks in the beginning of the year, but when they want to come at you and bring pressure, they're very good at doing that. So I think that bodes well for Georgia, in my opinion. There.
I'm watching an interview here where he's talking about Florida, Georgia. This guy's never experienced it. I mean, describing it is not experiencing it. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
And I think the quarterback is a particular person who has the hardest time in that scenario, because there's never is. You can't tell maybe as much because you're behind the glass there, but is there ever a time when there's not sort of noise at that game?
If it's in the middle of a blowout, you still have people celebrating and people. But early in that game, every play is gigantic, and you get one side of the stadium going nuts and the other's crickets, and then back and forth. So that in that way, it is very cool and almost gives the quarterback even, makes it tougher for them in a way, because it never feels truly like a home environment or truly like a road environment. There's a lot going on, and we've seen Jake Fromm play really, really well in that environment, those type of games. Stetson Bennett did the same.
Stetson was not great against Florida, though. Now you're revisionist history reading this thing.
I feel like one year was a lot better than the other, and I may have that. Yeah, I think
21 was not great.
Wasn't great now that I think about it. But Jake Fromm, for sure made big time throws in this game, and so did Aaron Murray for that matter. You got to make big throws when it matters. I'm not sure Graham Mertz is going to be able to do that for 4 quarters.
So here's the one thing that is very odd about this game, and you don't get this in any other scenario in the SEC or really across the country, is that it sounds particularly loud when the crowd roars, because it's everybody on the other side roaring at you, and your side is completely quiet. And that's the part it sounds like a wall of noise. And you can really hear the noise. Like at Auburn or South Carolina, it's loud and it's just loud, and but like in Jacksonville, it's loud and you can hear yourself think too. So but getting back to the actual point of this thing, which is he good enough to beat Georgia? I think he can be good enough. I'm skeptical that he is. I think that if Florida cannot functionally run the football, they're going to really have a hard time. A lot of the guys that I mentioned there, specifically Joe Burrow, though, they had the ability to pass their way out of it. Like Joe Burrow, Bryce Young, the Alabama quarterbacks, well, the lately Alabama quarterbacks, Mac Jones and Bryce Young, and then also Joe Burrow. Those guys could pass you right out of having a problem running the football. They didn't. Yeah. That wasn't a real issue for them, Matt. And for the Gators, they have been slowed in the run. I mean, I saw it with Utah and I saw it with Tennessee. They just were really bogged down in those games. That's totally what could happen in their game against Georgia. But it's also possible. I said Tennessee. I meant Kentucky. It's also possible that they've turned a corner and they're really just going to start playing well. And that's just all there is to it.
Yeah. End of the day, I think he's going to have to play his best game against the best defense that he's seen all year. And that's going to be really, really tough. I do like his weapons, and maybe they can get the run game going, outside of the tackles, which will help him. But at the end of the day, he's going to have the best game he's ever played. Going to be really tough to do in that environment. First time playing in this game, too. It's going to be tough.
All right. Last thing, Matt. 3 times this season, 3 times, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Utah, 3 times they've been held for fewer than 100 yards. It's actually fewer than 71. They lost 2 of those, and they should have lost the other one. I think that would be like lights, red flashing siren, all of that. They got to get to 100 yards. If they don't get there, that's why I picked Georgia and so forceful about it. If you don't do that, you're going to have a real problem. And very quickly off the top of your head, do you know how many teams this season have rushed for more than 100 yards against the Dogs?
2?
Auburn did for sure.
Yeah.
Auburn did for sure because that's all they did. But I think it's 2. I will have to get back to everybody because I don't want them hanging on here at the end. But it's not been a lot. I'll put it to you that way. It's not been a lot. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the website.